It's early 1991. You're in a movie theater. You've already started to nosh on your popcorn and Junior Mints. And the lights go down and a trailer comes on.
In 1979, we discovered in space, no one can hear you scream. In 1992, we will discover on Earth, everyone can hear you scream.
It's one hell of a promise, but it's also a fabrication. There's no movie behind this trailer. Fox is selling tickets to a film that doesn't even have a script yet. And let me lay this on you. That is the least bizarre thing that happens during the making of Alien 3.
Yeah, that part's right.
By 1990, Fox owned the most bankable monster in movies. You know the one. Ornery, huge, aerodynamic head, overactive sweat glands. Ridley Scott used it to reinvent sci-fi horror and gave a chest inch to an entire generation.
Oh no, not again.
Then James Cameron somehow made it almost better.
Take this.
And somewhere in the middle of that horrifying, acid-bleeding space massacre, the alien just stops being a monster and morphs into a brand. Do you want to know what a monster like that is worth to a studio? Go back even further to 1979.
It's Kenner's Star Wars action figures.
The toy company, flush with Star Wars money, makes an 18-inch version of the Thing.
Kenner presents new alien action figure.
$16 on the shelf right next to Luke Skywalker. Glow-in-the-dark head, a little second jaw that shot out of its mouth on a spring. Now there's one small problem with selling this doll thing. The toy's from an R-rated horror movie, which means the 7-year-old you're selling it to is a solid decade too young to legally see the film it comes from.
Are you glad you saw it? Yeah.
So you've got a nightmare-fueled Giger creature being sold to little Johnny, who has absolutely no idea what it is, and his mother, who very much does.
Well, that's great. That's just fucking great, man.
So obviously there's a widespread panic. Irate parents losing their minds. So you'd think that's the lesson, right? You don't sell the R-rated alien murderer to children.
Would you recommend to your little friends who are your age to go see it? No, I wouldn't.
Except by 1992, the franchise is worth so much that Fox does the exact same thing all over again. A whole new toy line.
They're unstoppable!
That black chrome skull was on lunchboxes, comics, trading cards. 2 films deep, this blood-curdling parasite is the most recognizable thing in any video store in America, next to maybe Pauly Shore's Encino Man.
Link and I are cruising the mountain, bro, and we figure we's a little juice.
So naturally, Fox wanted a third film yesterday. The 3 men who contractually owned the alien rights were Gordon Carroll, David Giler, and Walter Hill. They produced the first 2, and their names were going on the third come hell or high water. And these 3 geniuses get together in a room and they make one strict rule for the third movie. It cannot be like the other 2.
Why?
I have no idea.
They had a formula that printed money, and they decided, no, that's too easy. We need something different.
Because we thought, what do you do with this one to make it different? The whole idea you can't do something that's just going to be a reheat of 1 or 2.
Turns out different is a highly derogatory word in Hollywood.
And we're fucked.
No, you're fucked.
First script comes in. It's set in a shopping mall in outer space. Ripley's in a coma for the entire picture, and the bad guys are space communists.
I'm sorry, I don't think I understand.
Not surprisingly, this one is dead on arrival. The next pitch is set in small-town America, except the town is under a giant glass dome in deep space. They pass on this one too. And keep in mind, scripts don't grow on trees. The studio is paying actual human dollars to just add the words "in space" to every lame premise the screenwriters conjured up. So a new writer pitches the idea that sticks. A prison. A rock at the far end of nowhere, packed with convicts. Good bones. There's just one thing missing from it. Ripley. And the head of Fox kills the idea with a single sentence. Weaver is the movie. No Weaver, no movie.
Really?
So they paid her $4 million big ones, promised a box office cut, made her a producer, and agreed to kill off poor Ripley at the end of the movie.
Please.
Then Vincent Ward, an art house director from New Zealand, walks in and pitches a planet made out of wood.
A wooden-clad environment with floors and floors, sometimes hundreds of meters high each floor, with each of their different parts of their monastic guilds in each of the floors. I pitched this story to them, and really to my surprise, because I just wanted to get out of Australia for a break, they really liked it. Even though I'd had a commitment from everybody that they loved this idea, by the time I was heading over to England and beginning hiring crew and so on, they said, well, why do we need this wooden environment anyway? Why don't we just have it a mining colony?
There were just too many questions.
We were all wondering how the hell we were going to do it and make it look as fantastic and as great as the previous two.
And then I got this kind of list of saying, we want the following changes. I was told, do it or be fired. First I said, you know what, I'd rather be fired.
He's out the door as well. By this point, Fox has already picked a release date.
As a studio, we set out to make a release date and not make a movie.
They had started out with Vincent with this script, and because of creative difference problem, and then he was gone. So they had all this money that they had already spent on making pay-or-play deals with actors and so on, plus building all these sets. So I mean, they had a lot of money invested in this movie, but all of a sudden they didn't have a script.
It is a complete, unmitigated disaster. So who do they finally hire to come in and save this multi-million-dollar burning wooden planet?
Who was it?
A 28-year-old kid who has never directed a movie in his entire life. That kid's name was David Fincher.
Like he's a little lower than that. There we go. And action!
You know this guy, the what's in the box fella.
What's in the fucking box?
Shot that soap recipe for Anarchist.
Yeah, with enough soap, one can blow up just about anything.
And the homeliest baby in movie history. But that's the future. None of it has happened yet. And to understand why Fox picked this particular kid, you need to know two things about him. Number one, he knows how to make things look cool. He started out doing movie magic, the old-fashioned handmade kind. He worked with Lucas at Industrial Light and Magic. He was shooting those giant painted glass backgrounds for Return of the Jedi and Indiana Jones.
You ever seen anything like this before?
Then he goes off and directs music videos. He shoots Madonna in Express Yourself, building this immense industrial steel city that reportedly costs more money than most of the feature films. So the studio is well aware, whatever else happens, if you hand this kid a camera, he's gonna give you something worth looking at.
We were in this big meeting at Fox. I finally said toward the end of the meeting, so how do you picture Ripley in this movie? And he said, I don't know. Bald?
How do you like on your haircut?
It's okay. And that was the moment where I fell in love with him because I thought, that's such a great idea.
But reason two is pure corporate Hollywood. This movie had been chewing up and spitting out directors for years. These guys would come in, fight the executives over artistic integrity, and storm out. Fox was sick of it. And if a kid on his first feature throws a tantrum and walks off, his career is over before it even starts. They figured they were buying a wet behind the ears punk who was in absolutely no position to say no.
Fincher was suggested by head of the studio, actually, Roger Birnbaum.
We had lunch with him at the Fox commissary, David, Walter, and I, and we had not met him before. And he was incredibly impressive, and it just gave us the confidence. We wanted to, once again, to go with a director that did not have an established track record per se, but we thought was going to be a major director in the years to come.
So Fincher committed, and we were back in London, and now we're going to rewrite the script.
And David Fincher was like a breath of fresh air, really. And in fact, I was the first person to greet him in the art department. I thought, in fact, he was the director's assistant. He was so young.
He came in not having that preparation time, not having all the meetings, and not necessarily having a full script.
We went through this production continually reworking the script. The movie got greenlit based on a whole different version of the script. And David was forced to deal with that in a very short period of time, where he had to design the alien, he had to design the sets, and he had to write the script.
He took Vincent's original idea, but he changed it to a mechanized planet, he changed it to a convict planet.
Now Fincher admitted years later that he should have quit in the very first week.
I signed up naive and went off to Pinewood to be sodomized ritualistically for 2 years.
He shows up to work, looks around, and realizes there are no actual pages to the shoot, but he doesn't quit. Instead, he decides to fix it behind the studio's back. He flies in a scriptwriter named Rex Pickett, and this poor guy rewrites it in 9 days. For free. Gratis.
That's my life.
The studio liked Fincher and Pickett's script and sided with them, much to Giler and Hill's chagrin. Giler scoffed at them for listening to a shoe salesman, referring to a Nike commercial that Fincher had directed before.
What was the problem? There's no one problem with a, $65 million fucked up first-time filmmaker.
But then they make a wildly controversial decision. See, the studio wants to get away from the big, noisy action of the second movie and go back to the dark, haunted house horror of the first one. So they decide they need to strip away all of Ripley's emotional baggage. Now, you remember the end of James Cameron's movie, right? She fights a giant alien queen with a forklift just to rescue this darling little orphan girl and a handsome space marine. The entire emotional payoff of this 2.5-hour sequel is that she finally gets a new family. Well, in this new script, they die off screen right at the beginning.
I thought that was the stupidest fucking thing. You build a lot of goodwill around the characters of Hicks and Newt and Bishop, and then the first thing they do in the next film is kill them all off.
And here we are.
Really smart guys. You know, and replace them with a bunch of fucking convicts that you hate and want to see die. Really clever.
So cameras finally rolled in January of 1991. And between January and April, while they are physically pointing cameras at actors and rolling film, the producers Hill and Geiler rewrite the screenplay 9 times. Actors are getting their pages the morning of the shoot. It looks like there are actually more producers standing around than actors on the set.
These characters moving around, particularly when Fincher was there, moving around the floor in unison, watching him or watching us.
Luckily for Fincher, he was allowed to choose some of the actors. The movie is set in prison full of the scum of the universe, so Fincher needs a yard full of these mean, worn-in faces. And where do you think he goes looking for these hardened criminals? Obviously his favorite comedy.
Stop laughing, Mefno, this is serious.
He was a diehard fan of this little British picture, With Noel and I. He loved it so much he tried to hire the entire cast.
That's not much of a part, though, is it? Well, it's better than nothing. I make you cut your hair off.
He manages to get 2 of them, Paul McGann and Ralph Brown.
It's a beauty.
He even wanted the star, Richard E. Grant, to play the Doctor, but the studio, they gotta draw the line somewhere. So they dig their heels in and get him Charlie Dance.
If you insist.
David Fincher is a genius, basically, for whom I would jump off London Bridge. I trust him implicitly.
The man he put at the heart of that prison is Charles S. Dutton. And Dutton did not have to imagine the role.
What are you talking about?
As a kid, he killed a man in a fight, gone away for it, and served the better part of 12 years. He discovered acting in the can.
A girlfriend of mine sent me a book of plays. And I read a couple of plays and found one very hilarious. So I started a drama group in the prison.
He serves his time, and when he gets out, he goes to Yale.
So I went from jail to Yale. So I thought that was kind of funny.
It still sounds like bullshit to me.
But here's the irony. Fox goes out looking for a puppet, right? They want a yes man, a guy who will just nod and shoot whatever nonsense they hand him, and be grateful for the opportunity. And out of all the people walking the earth, they accidentally hire the single most stubborn filmmaker in the history of Hollywood.
They hired him, and it was a great idea. And then almost as soon as he started, they started kind of unwittingly or not undermining him. He hasn't acted like a first-time director, and I think that's one of the things that surprised Fox, because he isn't grateful for this amazing opportunity. He's not going, oh, yes, thank you so much, and I'll do whatever you say. He's sort of going, you gave me this job, and I'm going to do it my way, and I'm going to do it the best I can. You know, you're going to have to work with me.
He wouldn't move on to the next setup until the take was perfect. Every microscopic detail in the frame had to work exactly the way he saw it in his head.
One more. It was a little bit too fast.
And the first people to find out what that meant were the effects crew.
He knows exactly what he wants. He communicates it very well, and he pushes you.
David was always pushing people to go beyond what they would expect their own capabilities to come up with unique and different techniques.
Oftentimes, David, who was involved in each shot, would get the puppeteers all going to a point to where they were just barely in control of the creature. If they had to move any faster, they'd have been just bumping into each other.
The most testing we ever did on blood was for David Fincher on Alien 3. I think we did 36 swatches of subtly different blood. We'd go, it's between those two. It was mix it between these two. And we did, and we call it Fincher blood now.
The creature itself went to a young shop called Amalgamated Dynamics. 2 guys who trained under Stan Winston. Fox asked Winston first. He wasn't available, so he sent his proteges in his place. Alien 3 was their first film as a company, and the plan was to change how the monster fundamentally works. In the first 2 films, it's a man in a rubber suit walking upright. This one was built to run on all 4s, more like an animal. A little army of puppeteers running alongside it, working the rods.
If you look at the design of the alien and what David wanted it to be. A freight train meets a Jaguar with a speed and an agility that we had never seen in any of the Alien movies.
And then there's the birth scene. Now, traditionally, you know the drill. The alien bursts out of some poor guy's chest while he's trying to eat a bowl of space oatmeal. But they actually shot this one 2 different ways. The original idea they spent all this time and money on was that the monster was supposed to burst out of an ox.
We shot just the burst moment. The 7 frames of the burst was, I think, 76 takes.
Whoa! I remember at one point, I was reaching up and trying to be blocked by this ox body and shove this pole through and have it come out and aim for the camera and not go off center, and take after take after take. It was excruciating. The smell and the heat from the lights just making the smell worse, and just trying to jam this thing through. And
David Fincher has an amazing eye. When he'd look at, take 50, and he'd go, pull up take 27. And he gives very cryptic notes too. So he doesn't, he'll usually say like, more wugga wugga.
There were so many takes where it would come off slightly off center. It would just come out and kind of hang up here in space and bobble. And every time that happened, we had to pull it back in. We had to redress the ox. We had to clean up the blood because we always had blood and guts and all this other stuff bursting out of it.
The second unit director said to David, why are we doing so many takes? It's only 7 frames. And Fincher said, that's exactly why we have to do it. You only have 7 frames to tell this story. They're the most important 7 frames in the sequence.
In the end, Fincher watched the mechanical ox sequence, decided it moved like furniture, and threw it out. Then he brought in a dog and reshot the whole damn thing. So if you ever catch people arguing over whether the creature is born from a dog or an ox, the answer is yes. In the theatrical cut, it was a dog. Years later, the studio put out a version with the ox. But the funny part is, and I don't mean funny, ha-ha, the monster isn't even the hardest thing these 2 special effects guys have to build. You remember Bishop, the android guy? Well, at this point in the story, he's just a busted up pile of garbage.
You're wrong.
So they're forced to construct a fake Lance Henriksen head, and they cram, I don't know, something north of 20 little motors inside this rubber skull just to get the mouth and the eyes to work.
My legs hurt. I had a breath tube going up in there that I was furiously blowing on certain consonants to try to get a little bubble of spit.
Really?
I wanted to sort of feel like you don't really ever get that out of animatronics. Like there's breath. It's moving breath in and out of it.
ADI landed an Oscar nomination for the job, and it is, real talk, the best thing that happened to this entire movie. The creature worked, as well as those directors' trademark close-ups, and the whole grim industrial look of the film. But this is Fincher's whole problem, you see. He's pouring his blood, sweat, and tears into a movie that was completely doomed before he even set foot on the lot. And what actually got to him was that the people above didn't seem to care whether any of it was any good.
A lot of people who were just like, what the fuck? Who is this twerp?
Fincher's position was simple. He didn't want garbage going out into the world with his name on it. And the Fox folks thought, more or less, that it didn't really matter.
Fuck you.
The movie would open big.
I have hair now.
It would take everybody's money on the first weekend, and it would be forgotten either way.
Well, not much to say, is there? Death was instantaneous.
No shit.
They had already slashed his schedule down to 70 days before he even shot a single frame.
Fuck!
So shocker, they run out of time with a bunch of scenes left to shoot.
I think we all recognized that we had holes in the movie that we needed to fill. And rather than staying in England and continuing to try and fill those holes, the studio made a decision to bring the production back to LA, take a period of time off where you can assess what is needed and go back and more surgically fix those holes. No one left England thinking that the movie was finished.
So the first thing to do is to get the film all together and let the studio see it.
So sure enough, the movie goes way over. He comes in, he shows us a 3-hour version of the movie, which doesn't play very well.
When I got to Fox in Los Angeles, they ran the film for the American crew that were going to do this extra shooting. And I was in the theater with them, because that was then the first time I'd seen an assembly myself. And when the lights went up, there was quite a bit of silence. Nobody actually said anything.
Fincher pleads with them. He says, I need 6 weeks to finish this. They give him 8 days. And by now, the budget has skyrocketed past $50 million. And here's the part that is almost funny if it wasn't so tragic. Between the days they cut off the front of the schedule and the reshoots they swore they couldn't afford at the end, the movie ended up taking almost the same number of days Fincher wanted in the first place. They just made sure he suffered for every one of them.
I made a crucial error. I listened to the people who were paying for the movie, and they said the way to go about this is not to work with your friends. The way to go about this is to work with people who've done this time and time and time again. Basically, that translates into meet a lot of people who are going to resent you and your age and are not going to want to take instruction from you, and allow them to tell you what you can't do.
Then the studio just takes the movie away from him entirely.
I think it might be better if I left. I find you unpleasant to be around.
Over the course of a year, they hack his 3-hour cut down to 114 minutes.
I think it had to do with how many times they show it in theaters, so how much popcorn they sell and all that kind of stuff.
And right around this time, the 1992 LA riots break out. The whole city is up in flames.
It's very dangerous on the streets here in South Central LA right now.
And one of the fires starts creeping closer and closer to the lab where they're storing the master negative of Alien 3. And David Fincher admitted years later that he stood there watching the smoke, quietly praying to God that the entire building would burn to the ground and take the movie with it. It didn't, sadly. The fire department did their job. So the kid gets paid just a hair above the Directors Guild minimum. Practically nothing. But out of this entire monumental disaster, he walks away with one invaluable thing worth having. A lesson.
I knew what I was trying to do. I didn't always know how I was going to get there. And it was a little bit of, being put through the Play-Doh press. It was like, put enough pressure, it comes out as a long, doughy star, But I learned a lot.
Alien 3 opened on May 22nd, 1992. Second place behind Lethal Weapon 3. I mean, sure, it did all right overseas, but at home, dead in the water.
For American audiences, looking at these bunch of bald guys, they couldn't tell one from the next. That was a constant complaint. They all had English accents, which drove them all crazy. And it ended up doing as well as the first two. It was always surprising everybody because it wasn't much liked here in the States, but it was abroad. For example, in Europe, it did really well. And in places like South Korea, it did enormous. In Asia, it did really well.
Now all the critics are taking their shots at it, but Roger Ebert's take perfectly captures the essence of this picture.
This is probably the best looking bad movie I've seen in a while.
So Fincher packs his bags.
I kind of retreated back to doing television commercials and had no expectation that I would ever be employable again.
Boy, was he wrong about that. But that's a whole other story. And thankfully, that one ended up having a happy ending.